This is hemming technique number 1, and this is a turned and stitched hem. So on the right side you can see a visible machine line, or almost visible because it's blending in with the colour of my fabric, and on the wrong side you can see that it's been folded under, so there's no raw edge here or overlocked edge, and you can see the machine stitch that's going through there. This is ideal for most fabric types. You may find for some bulky fabrics it doesn't work for you because it's too thick, but it does give you a nice clean edge finish here because it's turned under, and it's a good way to deal with a fraying edge without having any sort of visible edge finishing. I'm using a sample of fabric that's 15 centimetres by 10 centimetres, and I'm going to start by turning up the raw edge by 3 centimetres. You could turn it under by less, but for the purpose of this I'm going to do 3 centimetres so that you've got a bit more room to turn under the second time. So I'll just pin this in place. I'm putting it through into the ironing board, but you could pin it first, then bring it over to the ironing board. And then just press that in place. So I've turned the fabric up, folding the wrong sides together. Now I've got that crease there in the fabric. What I'll do is open out my piece of fabric and I'm going to turn the raw edge in to meet that crease, and then just bring that over again. And I'm going to press that in place. It's much easier to turn the first fold up to your hem allowance than to attempt to do it in two sort of smaller stages. So folding it first up by the depth that you want it to be, and then I can pin that in place. You might find it stays well enough in place without pinning, depending on the type of fabric that you've used. And then I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and just stitch quite close to this inner folded edge here all the way along. I want to stitch really close to this folded edge here. It also helps if you've got a guideline to use to make sure that your stitch line is straight and parallel with the bottom edge of your garment, because this will be visible on the right side of the fabric. So I'm going to follow this 15 line here. So that's 1.5 centimetres or 5/8 in from the edge. And just take a couple of stitches forwards and back, and then keeping that stitch line straight, stitch all the way along. And then when you get to the end, just back tack, and then you can cut the threads. And this is what my finished hem looks like from the inside. So you can see a machine stitch line along there and a nice folded fabric edge along the top. And then from the right side, my stitch line is actually blending into the fabric colour here. So it's barely visible. So if you can colour match your thread, it really makes this quite an inconspicuous way of hem finishing without taking ages overdoing a hand stitch. To finish your sample, you could just edge finish with pinking shears, and then that's done.